Good morning and welcome to Richmond Hill Free Methodist Church. We're so excited to be here today and to be able to worship with you and to be part of your journey. For those who are new here today, welcome. If you want to learn more about us, be sure to check us out at RHFMC.com. There are so many ways we'll love to connect with you. You can also follow us on our Facebook page. It's Richmond Hill Free Methodist Church. And now let us all worship our God together, and we hope that you'll be blessed by today's message.
Lord, I come, I confess, bowing here, I find my rest. Without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. Listen again, Lord, I come. Lord, I come, I confess, bowing here, I find my rest. Without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Where sin runs deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. So teach my song to rise to you. When temptation comes my way, when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. So teach my song to rise to you. When temptation comes my way, when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. When I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Sing together, Lord, I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. my one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. You're my one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, and I thy true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I with thee one. High King of heaven, my victory's won. May I reach heaven's joys, oh bright heaven's sun. Heart of my own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, O ruler of all. Heart of my own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, O ruler of all. O Christ, be the center of our lives, be the place we fix our eyes, be the center of our lives. O Christ, be the center of our lives, be the place we fix our eyes, be the center of our lives. You're the center of the universe, everything was made in you. Jesus, breath of every living thing, everyone was made for you. You hold everything together. again, oh Christ, be the center. Oh Christ, be the center of our lives. Be the place we fix our eyes. Be the center of our lives. We lift our eyes to heaven. We wrap our lives around your life. We lift our eyes to heaven, to you. We lift our eyes to heaven. We wrap our lives around your life. We lift our eyes to heaven, to you. Oh Christ, be the center of our lives. Be the place we fix our eyes. Be the center of our lives. Oh Christ, be the center of our lives. Be the place we fix our eyes. Be the center of our lives. So turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace.
Good morning, everyone. Last week, Pastor Lou did the whole dance between how good it is to see you guys, but not actually see you guys, but you can see us, you know what it is. So we'll skip that. But what I will say is that I think these past few months has helped me understand a little bit better about Paul's sentiments when he's writing his letters to the different churches, how he longs to be with them and how he thinks about them. Over the course of this pandemic, I have done to interact with some of you guys on WhatsApp. I've seen you guys celebrate with one another. Congratulations, Sarah and Albert, again on your new kid. And I've seen you guys interact on Friday nights, sometimes on Sunday afternoons. It really helps me to see what a beautiful community this is. I do long for the day that we will be able to meet together again. Yeah, there won't just be these recordings, but I'll just actually see you guys again. We get to pray for that day to happen soon. For those of you who don't know me or who've forgotten about me, my name is Caleb. I'm a student at the seminary at Tyndale, and I'm in my second year. I also worked with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship over in New Brunswick for a few years, and yeah, it's my honor and privilege as always to be able to share a message with you guys. Today's message is titled Finding Joy in Steadfast Promises, and we'll predominantly be working in the book of John. Before we begin, though, I really want you to hold on to two questions throughout, or consider two things throughout the course of the message. It's one question, but two parts. And the question really is how will you live your life differently if you were 100% convinced that you are loved, and if you knew that you were going to be victorious? Let me repeat that. It's how would you live your life differently if you were 100% convinced that you are loved and that you are going to be victorious? And these two questions, I believe, are the fundamentals of every question that we ask in our life and every anxiety that we might have. And it's around the questions of, am I loved? And does my life have purpose? What is my purpose? So hold on to those two questions. We'll talk about more at the end. But yeah, really consider that. Our passage today will be from the book of John, John chapter 10, verses 7 to 18. And it reads like this. Therefore, Jesus said again, I tell you the truth. I am the gate for the sheep. Whoever came before me were thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. He will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and life to the full. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays his life down for his sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and not the one who owns the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I laid my life down for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, not only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down for my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. Some context before we begin is that, one, Jesus is and has been running his ministry in more rural areas. And so the reason why he's using this shepherd analogy or this parable is because this is an experience or something that his audience would be able to connect with and understand. The second part of that is teachers and rulers and God himself have often been used or stylized as shepherds throughout the Old Testament and in various teachings in ancient times. And so Jesus, again, is borrowing from something that people would be very familiar with and understand well. Not only that, but the way sheep pens work in the evening is oftentimes there would be one gateway or one opening that the sheep can come in and go out of so they don't escape. And oftentimes the shepherd himself would sleep across the opening, so to keep the sheep out, to keep the sheep in, and any robbers or animals out. And so when Jesus says that he is the gate, he's actually literally the gate, and he can actually be the shepherd at the same time. He's not confusing the story. It is actually a dual purpose for the shepherd. Number two is it's actually possible for the sheep to know the shepherd's voice. We often say that sheep are stupid and that they'll go and do whatever they please and they get themselves lost and in trouble all the time, which they do. But in fact, they are intelligent enough to be able to build a bond between them and the shepherd. Some shepherds claim that they can actually call the sheep by name, and that the individual sheep will, one, recognize the voice of the shepherd, but also recognize their own name and come to them. I haven't really worked with sheep, but this is what my research has told me. So hopefully it's all true, and I'm not just leading you astray. But we're going to be working through 4 different points right now. And point number 1 is that we are called to know God's voice. We are called to know the shepherd's voice. The Bible says that Jesus is a good shepherd, and that the shepherd knows his sheep, and the sheep recognize his voice. And I hope over the course of these messages that you hear from me, from Pastor Lou, from Pastor Q, from Mike when he was preaching, that when we say that we hear God, or that we felt that we were being led by God or guided by God, that these things don't come off as abstract things to you. That when we share about these experiences in our lives, it's not a way for us to make ourselves sound more holy, or to give ourselves more authority, or to justify, or a more humble way of saying, like, oh, for my accumulated experience or wisdom, this is what I think we should do. When we say that we hear God's voice, we really can, and you really can. This is not something that is limited to pastors or leaders or deeply spiritual people. This is something that every Christian has access to. And that's because of the Holy Spirit that lives in us. Now, it does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. Okay, maybe not effort, but it takes a lot of intention to develop a sense and to be able to better understand what it means to hear God's voice. But it's the same thing with any relationship, and any same thing with the sheep and their shepherd. It takes time. And you have to be able to learn to differentiate between the shepherd's voice and thieves and robbers' voices. In the same way, when I spend more time with God, doing my devotions, meditating, listening to worship music, considering what He has said and taught me in the past, praying, having conversations with other believers, and just having conversations with Him myself. When I do that consistently and intentionally, I am more reliably able to discern God's voice. And when I am more reliably able to discern God's voice, then I know that where He's leading me and the places that He leads me are good. So number 1 is it's possible to know God's voice, and it does take intention and it does take time, but it's one of those things is very it's worth it. And this is coming from somebody who I also struggle, and I come on and off sometimes. There's seasons where I'm very close and I hear and spend the time with God all the time and I know His voice, and there's other times where it becomes a little bit muddy because I haven't been spending as much time. But I know the times that I have heard Him are the times where I'm filled with most peace and the most confidence, knowing where I'm being guided, and be able to do some of the most influential or the most the best things in my life have been the times where I know I have heard my shepherd's voice. Number 2 is also a very simple thing. It's that Jesus is a good shepherd. His goal and His purpose for you is to lead you to abundant life, and into green pastures. And we often forget that, because the road to green pastures, one, is away from the safety of the sheep pen. But if we were to stay in the sheep pen all the time as a flock, we would eat all the grass and there wouldn't be anything to eat. But we often forget that. The walls of a sheep pen give us security and comfort. And in order to lead us to those green pastures, Jesus has to call us out of that sheep pen. It's the same thing with our lives. Oftentimes there are areas where we just feel comfortable, and this place gives me security, and God calls us out of it, and we become mad about that. It's like, well, like, I'm okay if I don't have as many spiritual experiences. I'm okay if I'm not fed as much as I could be. I just want to stay where I know I am safe, where I know the lay of the land, where I'm comfortable. But Jesus doesn't call us for that. He calls us to greener pastures and an abundant life. He doesn't want just good enough for you. He wants the best for you. And then we have to travel. And I don't know about you, but especially in the wintertime, I don't want to be walking around outside. These days with a car and transit and stuff, it's much more convenient to take the car or to do other modes of transportation. Walking takes work, and it stimulates muscles, and you need to be fit. And people like Vince who run for fun are mind-boggling to me, because I can't ever picture that being fun. I would much rather do other forms of exercise. But again, in order to go to green pastures, all the time, we are called to walk with Jesus. And sometimes those are down paths that we would rather not go. Sometimes it's further. Those pastures are further than we would like, and we become impatient with him. But we need to remember that he is the good shepherd, that he is somebody who we can rely on, somebody we can trust, and that, his intention is to help us, to lead us to the abundant life. And again, those might be paths and going down distances that we are not, that we would not have chosen for ourselves. We might get blisters on our feet. We might get rocks stuck in our shoes. We might even sprain an ankle. But if we keep following our shepherd, he will take care of us. He might even carry us. One of those most famous pictures of Jesus is him having the lamb over his shoulders as he looks for the one and leaves the 99 behind. It's one of those things that holds true, that when we can't walk, we can pray that Jesus would give us the strength, and that he would carry us instead. But he will get us to the green pastures if we trust him. Number 3, I want to talk about with you guys and share a little bit. In this passage, we see that Jesus is not a victim. I'll say that again. Jesus is not a victim. And it's one of those things I was like, well, duh, Caleb. He's the Son of God. He's all-powerful. He's our God. Why? Of course he's not the victim. But, one of the things I struggle the most with about being a Christian, I think, is Matthew chapter 5, the Beatitudes. And in there is this one niggling little line that says, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And I consider myself, and either in the way my voice sounds, in the way that I'm built, in my personality, there really isn't, or the way I think, there really isn't that much in the way that I'm designed that I would say is naturally meek. Something that comes to mind is meek as weak. And I think society would agree with that. That meekness is a weakness. And when you're meek, you're going to be trampled on. And that's not a way I want to live my life, if I'm perfectly honest. I would much rather have authority. I would much rather have to be well thought of. I would much rather lead and pawn off unpleasant tasks to other people. And I think that's a natural inclination for many of us. meekness isn't natural for human nature. And when we look at the Bible and we look at our lives and society, oftentimes the worst situations are because people refuse to back down, refuse to give a step. We're stubborn. I'm stubborn, at the very least. And it's easy to be that. It's easy. Even the disciples, after they followed Jesus for several years, are spending time, wasting time, arguing about who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, when instead they could be seeing and observing what Jesus is doing and understanding what he's all about, which is one of Jesus' main purpose was to lay his life down. That was a command that he got from God, a command that he got from his Father. And it's something that he held to, and he knew he was going to have to do throughout his life, at the end of his life. And it wasn't even just the cross. It was every moment of his life. He stepped and gave up the authority that he had in heaven. He gave up the paradise that is heaven to be a baby born in a manger. We're going to be talking about the Advent story soon, I'm sure. But the day that everybody celebrated the birth of the Messiah, he cried. I think that's one of the quotes I have from a pastor from many, many years ago when I first got converted that really resonate with me. And then the day that everybody wept because Jesus died, he was able to celebrate in victory because it was finished. But yeah, it's not natural for us to want to be meek. But Jesus actually makes a point to say that the student doesn't get to be better than his master. And Jesus is our master. He's our shepherd. And so if he is willing and able to lay down his life, then we need to be humble enough, to be meek enough to consider the fact that God might call us to do so. And if he does, that we are obedient enough to do so. And it's important to understand why he did it. He did it because he knew the purpose that God had for him, and that this sacrifice of his would accomplish that purpose, that it would be finished when he died on the cross and then resurrected again. Then, because he knew that he was also going to be resurrected again, he willingly and knowingly laid his life down in order to achieve victory. And when you do that, when you choose to be meek, then you're not weak. That's actually the strongest you can ever be. I'll say that again. When you choose to be meek, when you willingly lose the fight, when you willingly back down, you're not being weak. You're being strong, because it's easy to be strong. It's harder to be strong, but choose to be weak instead. And why do we do that? We do that because we know that we're not the ones who are ultimately in charge of victory. That when we choose to be gracious, when we choose to reconcile, when we choose to forgive other people, when we choose to not take the best for ourselves, but to give that to others instead, that's when God works. And that's when God shows that there's something different about us. And that's when we're strong. And remember, Jesus' death on the cross achieved the ultimate purpose. He conquered both death and sin, which opened the door for you and me to come into the family, to become inheritors, co-inheritors in the kingdom of God, to be adopted as sons and daughters. That opened the door to this movement that's been a part of the world for over 2,000 years, and that will continue for all of eternity. And we're called to join him in his work. I think when we're able to be meek, we show a testimony that is so much stronger than anything we can ever hope for. So Jesus was not a victim. He laid his life down with the authority that he had, because he also had the authority to pick it back up again. We ourselves as Christians can lay our lives down, knowing that whatever comes our way, that we will have victory, that even in the midst of ashes in our lives, that there will be beauty in it, that no experience that you go through is ever wasted, that even when you fail, it will build up. It'll be something that God can use to build you up and to build others up. And even when you make mistakes, oftentimes I consider that in the process of planning for all the things in my life, that when God chose me, he knew, God knows every mistake I'm going to make. That even as he gives me opportunities to teach and to lead others, to give advice to others, he knows of all the times I'm going to say something wrong, or all the different times I might be a bad example to others. And is no excuse to do those things. But I also know that the responsibility ultimately does not lie with me. That even when I fail, that ultimately that God will take care of them. It's not my job to take care of everybody. God will do that. I only need to do the best that I can and be as faithful as I can, because I'm human too. All your leaders are humans as well. We will all fail you at some point. And hopefully it just doesn't happen too often, and hopefully we're humble enough to admit it and to ask for forgiveness when we do. But yeah, I can do this and do all these other things, and your leaders can do the things that they do, knowing that ultimately God is the one in control. And no matter how the seeds turn out, it's not up to us, it's up to God. But we know that Jesus was not a victim and that he was victorious in the end. He was a conqueror in the end over death and over sin. Number 4, and finally, is that we are called to be united. This passage talks about how there are a sheep in another sheep pen that he's going to have to call, and that there's going to be one flock and one shepherd. This is important for Israel because they believe that they're God's chosen, and this other sheep pen are the Gentiles, all the other people who weren't part of the original promise that God made with Abraham, but whom God had always intended from the Old Testament times to be a part of the family. God always intended that there would be a unity, or that his kingdom would be filled with many nations. We are called to be united with sheep of different pens, or sheep of different flocks. And that's important in a time to know, in a time full of division. As we draw deeper cultural lines, as our culture draws deeper lines between your gender, as political lines are being drawn, we are called to be united. We're called to reconcile. We're called to be gracious, to be humble. One of the big things from these past few weeks has been the U.S. election. And my goodness, have people become polarized about the results of that. And I can't say that I'm not, I don't have a preference. I do. I can't say that it's baffling to me sometimes about how radical other people can be on both sides. What I can say is that it doesn't. I try to not let these differences make me think any less of the people on the other side who disagree, that it's always that no matter the differences, that it's important that we still remain as one church, and that. If I'm being completely honest, I believe that the way forward probably requires aspects of both camps. It requires aspects of both genders. It requires aspects of all the different cultures combined. That we can't really be the church and embody all that we can be, the witnesses that we can be, the impact that we could have, unless we learn about the differences in the culture, in gender, in political ideas, or what justice looks like, and to be able to reconcile those things, find the tension points between those things. And the great thing about tension is that it both pulls us apart, but it can also pull us together. That when you have tension in the line, it can also hold people together, or things together. And I think the differences in culture and gender and all those different things that the society says we need to define and hold on to and stand up for, that these things, rather than dividing us, could actually make us stronger together. And it takes work. It's much easier to cut the line and to stay in your own camp. But that's not what we're called to. We're called to being one flock under one shepherd, one faith, one baptism, one God, one spirit, one resurrection. Paul writes it much more eloquently in the book of Ephesians. But yeah, that's what we're called to. We're called to be united. We're called to reconcile with one another. And we're called to be the church that would be the witnesses to the whole world, to be the city on the hill, to be his light, to be the salt of the earth. And we can't do that unless we are able to be humble enough to lay down our weapons, our fists, and instead open them up to be a handshake or even a hug, embrace the differences that seem to divide us, and to find a way to be reconciled. This is also important for families, and relationships can't exist unless we do the same thing. And there are a lot of reasons why it's hard to forgive family members, but even more so, we're called to reconcile, to be gracious, to give mercy. And in places where we have been wronged and where we are seeking justice, we can trust that God will bring that to us. But we need to leave it in his hands. So we're reaching the end. So number one is we are called to know God's voice. And it's not something abstract that you have no access to, that as you spend time with God and you're intentional about that, this is a spiritual thing, a muscle that you can build, where you become more accustomed and you know better and more confidently where he's leading you and how he's guiding you. And I promise you, those will be the moments where you will have the most peace, where you are filled with the most joy, and where you are the most you, because those are the moments where you will be the person who God has made you to be and called you to be. Number two is that Jesus is a good shepherd. He is the one who is willing to lay his life down for you, who will protect you from thieves and robbers, whose ultimate goal is to lead you to an abundant life and life to the full, who will lead you to greener pastures. And that sometimes means that you have to go and leave places where you are feeling the most comfortable. You might have to be going down a journey that's longer than you anticipate, that you might even get hurt or feel uncomfortable or tired and weary. But he will carry you through and give you the strength that you need to get there. And yeah, that again, he is leading you to greener pastures. Number 3 is that Jesus was not a victim. That meekness is not weakness, and instead it really is the path to being strong and more than conquerors. That Jesus himself was weak, or was meek, I'm so sorry. That he laid his life down on the cross with full authority, knowing that he also had the authority to pick it up again. And that we as Christians can lose battles. We can be seen to lose. We can have other people sometimes take advantage of us. We can not get ahead in life the way that we think we should or could if we really built, or if we really leaned into the ways that our society and the world does things, but that we're called to a different road instead. And that road, even though it might look like failure at times, just like the cross looked like a humongous failure, will lead to eternal victory. And that's especially important when we consider number 4, is that we're called to be united. We're called to reconcile with each other, with others. We're called to understand the differences, and instead of letting those differences be the thing that divide us, but we are called to lean into the tension instead, and to let those things make us stronger, help us to be stronger than ever before. That no matter the differences in culture, no matter differences in opinions about faith, of our genders, of what our understanding of what justice looks like, that it's actually possible, I believe, to find some road that leads to reconciliation. And yeah, that we're called to do that. That we're called to be in relationship with those who are different than us, who think differently than us. Then that's infinitely important. Now, at the beginning, I asked you to consider 2 things about how you would live your life differently if you knew 100% that you were loved and that you would be victorious. And I just want to remind you of previous messages where we talked about the basis of joy is contentment. And the basis of contentment is the foundation of being content is knowing in the person that the thing or the person that you put your trust in, and that we can be content because the person we put our trust in is Jesus, is the ever faithful good shepherd who is all powerful, who is always in control. And he's the basis of our joy. You are 100% loved. And we know that we as a church, through Jesus, under his leadership, will be victorious at the end times. That no matter what you go through in life, no matter the persecution, no matter if other people slander you, no matter if you are seen to lose by the world's standards in this life, that you are victorious and that your life will have purpose. That every interaction that you have, every conversation you have, everything you do has an eternal impact. And Pastor Lou talked a little bit about that last week, because the way that we have an impact is the way that we witness to other people, the way that we lead others to being closer with Christ. And that might be an overt conversation, or it might just be them knowing that you are a Christian and living different in the way that you live differently from other people. But we have a purpose. We have an eternal impact because the people that we interact with, we can can come to know Jesus through us. So how would you live your life differently? Especially in these pandemic times, a lot of people are wrestling with depression, wrestling with a lot of anxiety. And oftentimes the roots of these things are around these 2 questions. What is the purpose of my life? Or I'm not achieving the purpose in my life. Or I'm so lonely. I'm not loved. Will I be loved? Am I going to find a relationship? Or what will people think about me? And oftentimes, even though we know Jesus loves us, even though we know God loves us and he forgives us, oftentimes the opinions of our families, the criticisms of our coworkers or our bosses, the different ways we feel insecure in our lives, they change our perception about our relationship with God. And so we feel insecure about who we are with God, in our relationship with God. And we feel insecure about our place in his heart or his relationship with us. And it holds us back. When we feel like we want to take a risk because that's the purpose that God has called us to, we wonder if he's actually wants the best for us because we've been betrayed in the past, or because we've been misled in the past by people we respected and who had authority over us. When we are about to take those risks, we also wonder if we are being held back by all the different times we failed in our lives and how those things haven't borne any fruit. And so we're afraid of wasting resources, we're afraid of wasting time, and we're afraid of failure. But if we believe that Jesus is the Good Shepherd, if we trust in the ways that we have learned to hear his voice, then we can be confident in the ways that we are loved, that we don't need to doubt that he would lay his life down for us and he would lead us in order for us to be protected, in order for us to be secure, because he's already done that. And we don't need to be concerned about where he's leading us, or whether the journey itself will be worth it, or whether all the different times that we're feeling uncomfortable and away from the security that we think we need, because we know of the destination that he leads us to. We know that the greener pastures that he leads us to is victory. And we don't need to worry about the ways of whether our lives will have purpose, because he's promised us that in our lives we will have an eternal impact in the way that we witness to others. And so I think, I hope and I pray that you find peace in that as you learn to lean into that relationship, as you lean into being guided and led by our Good Shepherd, that you will find joy and that your life will be filled with joy. Because I know my life has been. Like I said, the moments where I have heard and understood where God was leading me, and I've leaned into it and obeyed, no matter how nervous or crazy it sounded at the time, those have been the times in my life that I've been filled with the most joy, where my life was the most fulfilled. And it's led me down roads where I didn't think I'd ever walk, but here I am. And it's all been worth it. I hope that, and that's been my experience, and I hope that is your experience too. To close today, I would like to end with Paul's prayer for the Ephesians. And it reads as this. Ephesians chapter 3, verses 14. For this reason I kneel before the Father, from whom his whole family in heaven and on earth derives its name. I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the saints, to grasp how wide and how long and how deep is the love of Christ, and to know that this love surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us, to him be the glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen. That's my prayer for you guys. And yeah, I hope that you will walk with the shepherd, that you'll learn to hear his voice, and that your life will be filled with joy, be filled with peace, and that you will find fulfillment. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Hi, everyone. This is indeed a very unique Christmas that we're going through. Certainly in my lifetime, I've never gone through a Christmas like this one, never lived through a pandemic, and I think that's true for most of you. But we are also reminded that just before the very first Christmas, more than 2,000 years ago, the Israelites were living in a condition that was not any better than ours right now. We don't know when things are going to get better, and neither did the Israelites. We don't know all the implications of what the pandemic is going to mean coming up to us in the next little while. And the Israelites did not know what Roman occupation was going to mean going forward either. We don't know how much longer this is going to last, and neither did the Israelites. But with the birth of the Christ child, there was a light in the darkness. It ushered in the beginning of something which wasn't recognized until later. But when we all look back, we realize the importance of the birth of that child. God knew that. He sent his angels to announce that it was a very special thing. We just didn't recognize it until later. And when Jesus walked the earth, more light was revealed. When he taught as no one else